Okay, now, this one's going to be the hardest sell. What I'm going to try to suggest here is that we actually look like God. That we actually physically look like God. Now you say, well, how did you get this? Well, there's two Hebrew terms, likeness and image. The terms for likeness and image are selim and demut. Okay, selim and demut are the two Hebrew terms. If you do a word study on these two words, selim and demut, like image and likeness, they are very physical terms. They are very physical terms. They're not moral terms. They're very physical terms. So, for example, let me just give you one example from 1 Samuel chapter 6, verse 5. 1 Samuel chapter 6, verse 5. It says that the Philistine made images, selim or demut, they made selim or demut images of these rats out of gold. They made these images of rats out of gold. Now question, did these gold rats look like rats? Yeah, but they were made of gold. So they weren't real rats. They looked like rats, though. Did they physically look like rats? Could you look at that gold rat and say that's a rat? But it's in gold, okay? So what I'm saying is that there's a physical resemblance, and we see that here. By the way, you guys all know this. In the ancient world, in Israel and stuff, if it says, did the Israelites ever make images for themselves? If I said images for you, were those images physical images? Did they make physical images of Dagon and Baal and Chemosh, some of the ancient gods, and they made these images of them? Were those physical? They were physical images, and then the people bowed down to those images. What were the images made out of, by the way? We know what they were made out of. What were they made out of? Yeah, somebody said gold. Those were the rich ones and stuff. What did most people made them out of what? Stone and wood, right? You make your images out of stone and wood. You plate them with gold and other things like that. Sometimes, but anyways, let's get out of there. But what I'm saying is the images were something that was physical. So what I'm trying to suggest is that these two terms here are both very physical terms. Images usually was something very, very physical. So what I'm suggesting is then we're actually physically, we look like God. Now let me push that one step further. I'm going to use here some of the Assyrian kings, okay? Now suppose I'm an Assyrian king. You're lucky I'm not. But anyways, the Assyrians were very, very, very cruel. And they're kind of like the Hitlers of the ancient world. And the Assyrian kings, you had the great Assyrian king, and when he conquered a new territory, guess what he did? When the Assyrian king would conquer a new territory, he would put up a statue of himself. What was that statue mean? It meant that I, the great king, my statue is in, say, Zobah or Damascus. That means then that I am king in Damascus and Zobah. Okay? So the king put up a physical image made out of stone, raised himself. It kind of reminds me of, who was that guy? There was a guy in, Iraq that had this big statue of himself. Do you remember? And then he pulled down Saddam Hussein's image and stuff. But in other words, the image meant that what? I am king of this territory. Now, look at what God does. Look what God does. God makes an image of himself and puts it on the earth. Is that a way that God is declaring his sovereignty, his kingship over the earth? That is, we are the image of God. He puts us down here to rule in his place. And so that there's a physical resemblance. We resemble God as the Assyrian king makes a statue, an image, and puts it over the territory that he rules. Now God also puts, or before that actually, God put his image in us and puts us on the earth to rule. Now, let me just keep pushing this a little bit further. Somebody may say, wait a minute, Hildebrandt, you said God is a spirit, and a spirit hath not flesh and bones as you see me have. So if God is a spirit and hath not flesh and bones, how are we made in the image of God? You said you've been really camping on this thing about physicality. But God's a spirit. He's not made, doesn't have flesh and bones. I want you to think about Jesus. Jesus, okay? Did Jesus take on human form? Yes, he did. Did he only appear as a human, or was he a human? He was a human. When Jesus got killed, did he really die as a human being? He died. When he comes back to life from after he's been dead, did Jesus just rise as a spirit, or did Jesus rise physically? As a matter of fact, he goes up to, what was that guy's name? Says, hey, check it out, man. Put your fingers here. Put your fingers in my side and stuff. It's me. This is me. I was crucified. There are the marks and stuff. Do you remember doubting Thomas? Okay? So he says to Thomas, feel. By the way, did Jesus, after the resurrection, did he sit down and eat with his disciples, like eat food? Yeah. So was Jesus physical after the resurrection? Was the resurrection physical? Is Jesus going to be in a human body for eternity? Did Jesus raise from the dead, and is he alive forevermore in a human body? Now, my question to you is, if Jesus in the future, and it's been a couple thousand years now, if he's in a human body for eternity, is it possible that Jesus was in a human body, or like a human body, before the creation, and that we were made in the image of Christ, the physicality of that, we were made in the image of Christ? Therefore, can Christ become a human being because we're compatible? Can Jesus become a dog? Would Jesus become a dog? You know what I'm saying? Is a dog like incompatible? Okay, can he become a human being? Yes, he can, because there's compatibility there. So what I'm suggesting is that Christ from eternity had a, quote, human form, and that we as human beings were made in that image, so that when Jesus comes down, can he morph himself into a human being? Is it compatible that he can be that way the rest of eternity? Yes, he's compatible with that. Does that make sense? So I'm arguing then we actually look like God. The terms selim and demute are physical terms. And so what I'm suggesting is that we are made like Christ. We're made in the image of Christ. And by the way, after the fall, do we have some problems with being, immoral and sinful? Are we being recreated in the image of Christ? Is being like Christ our destiny? And so that's where we're going. So we're going back, in a certain sense. The image of God is in us. It's been marred because of sin. We are going back to becoming like Christ. And so that's... Anyways, now, we're built on the image of Christ is what I'm suggesting, and then therefore there's this compatibility and things like that work with that. Now, I want to raise a couple other things here. There's some implications to this that are really wonderful. Look in the future. 1 John chapter 3, verse 2 talks about the image going in the future. But we know that when he, that is Jesus, this is talking about Jesus, that when he appears, we shall be like him. When Jesus appears, will there be a transformation in our bodies? And we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Everyone who has this hope in him does what? Purifies himself. Does the hope of Christ's return purify us? Do we purify ourselves waiting for the hope of Christ? Do you know someone who has lived in light of the coming of Christ? My father was old. I remember him when I was young going to the window, and he would go to the window almost on a daily basis. And he would go to the window, he would look out the window, and he said, Jesus may be coming back today. Did that shape his life? Did that shape his life? You better believe it did. Did he love my mother because Christ may be coming back today? Probably loved my mother for other reasons too, but did he love my mother? Oh, yeah. Did my father try to be the best father that he could be? Because what? Christ may be coming back today, and I've got to face my Maker. And so you've got a really beautiful thing there that it transforms this hope. What I'm trying to suggest is, does hope transform who you are? Let's suppose, like my wife's a CPA now. Suppose some of you guys are going to become CPAs and things. If you start to become a CPA at Gordon College and you take all these courses, will your hope of becoming a CPA, will it shape how you learn and what you learn because of your hope? You hope that you're going to be able to do something or have this kind of vocation or something. And so you shape your studies to that, okay? Does hope shape who you become? Does hope shape who you become? And what he's saying is that when Christ comes back, we have this hope that Christ will come back. And when we see him, we will be like him. The image of God in us will be renewed. The image of God in us will be renewed and will be made right. We'll be purified. We'll be purified in his sight when Jesus comes back. And is that a big hope? This is a big hope, man. Someday we're going to see Jesus. He's going to transform us into his image and that kind of thing. Now, there's some other things here too. C.S. Lewis's book, Weight of Glory, I think, deals with this. That can you see the image of God in other people? Can you see the image of God in other people? Can you see the image of God in people you dislike? Are they made in the image of God? Can you see? Is there goodness? Is God's goodness embedded in every individual? in one way or another. Now they may be, is it possible they can be a really evil person, but are they still made in the image of God? I want to give two examples of this, and I'm going to walk over here because I want to get away from the Bible on these examples because they bring back bad memories for myself and things. Once upon a time, I went to a place called Grand Island High School. There was a girl at Grand Island High School called Maxine. Maxine was, and I don't know how to say this, she was like the most homely girl at Grand Island High School. It was like you didn't want to sit or be by her because you get whatever she got, and you don't want that. It's like cooties or whatever it was. And so everybody was like abstained from Maxine because she's like on one of the untouchables kind of thing. Really homely girl. Did everybody in the school mock this girl out? Okay? And actually it was so pathetic after a while they didn't even mock her out. Okay? But nobody wanted to be around Maxine and stuff like that. Question, was Maxine made in the image of God? Yeah. To treat her like that, was that appropriate? And I wish I were sharper. I was not. I didn't do any of the cruel stuff to Maxine and stuff like that, but I didn't do any. What should I have done as a Christian? Is it possible I should have befriended her and made her feel the own image of God in her and brought that out? And I was not smart enough to do that when I was a young kid, and I'm ashamed of that. It was bad. Went back to, what do they call it? Unions, Grand Island High School. This is like many X years later, but it's many years. Kevin Carr, guy I went to high school with, said, "Hey, Ted, you remember Maxine?" And it was like, who can forget Maxine? There was only one Maxine in the school. Maxine's become a Christian. She's a sister in Christ now. And Kevin told that to me on the phone. I was like, holy cow, man. Christian people should treat people with dignity and respect. And now, let me go on to another example. Once upon a time, my wife and I went to a concert. It was a Michael Card concert. He was a guy after the Civil War who used to sing Bible songs. And so we got some free tickets because Anita she stayed in our house all the time, and she ate our food. She lived with us, basically. She was a student and stuff. And so she was with this WDCX, or so the Christian radio station. So she got free tickets. So we got to sit in the booth with all the privileged people. And so it was all, red, this red like rope went off and roped off section. And so she pranced down and she lifted up the rope and we got to sit right there. And Michael Card was doing the concert here. There was a big old speaker here. Well, my wife hates loud music and I'm sitting in front of the speaker. I like it loud because I can't hear. But anyways, so I'm sitting in front of the speaker. I'm saying, this is going to be a great concert, man. He's like, we're talking 15 feet from us. And so we're sitting down there and I'm thinking, man, this is like special seats. Whenever I go to a concert, I'm usually way in the back and I got to use binoculars, So this time we're right on top of it, man. So I'm sitting there in the seats, right basically about there, and all of a sudden this guy comes walking in, he lifts up the rope, and he sits down next to me. And I think, this guy's a big shot. They're all big shots down there where we were. He then proceeds to take off his shoes, and with his stocking feet, he puts his foot right here. There were theater seats. Put one of his foot there, and one of his foot's there. There's this lady, her hair's all done up. She's really all decked out. And this lady's got this guy's 2 stocking feet like 6 inches from her nose. Either way she turns, man. Everybody starts going, whoa, this is getting a little weird. I've never seen that bad before. So anyways, Anita pops up then and she knows, okay, the guy shouldn't have been sitting there. So she runs around the thing, comes down this side. She comes in and she starts talking to the guy. Now Anita, you'd have to know, this girl's tough. I don't know how to describe it. This girl's seen a lot of life, okay? I'm talking abuse. I'm talking a lot of major stuff, okay? She's a tough girl. She comes down, talks to the guy. I don't know what the guy said to her. And all of a sudden, she just starts backing up like this. And she walked away. And I thought, holy cow, I'd never seen her act like that before. I don't know what he said, but I'd never seen her back off like that. She's a pretty aggressive young woman. So she comes back around, sits down and stuff. And then I start talking to the guy. And the guy starts telling me his story. And he was in this laundromat and 40 guys jumped him. He's got a 3rd-degree black belt, and he just blew all 40 guys away. And so I'm talking with this guy. My wife, meanwhile, leans over to Anita and says, "It's okay. Ted talks real well with people like this." And stuff. So I'm thinking, Okay, 40 guys, third degree black belt. Turns out my son and I were at that time working on our black belts. So I'm saying, he's third degree. Well, this should be interesting. And so anyways, he starts talking. He runs computers out of his head. He did 20 computers at a time. He doesn't use a keyboard, mouse, or anything, or even speech. He runs them out of his head, 20 computers at a time. So he's going off, and the stories are getting a little stranger and stranger. So meanwhile, intermission happens. What happens? All the people there go, pshum, they're all gone. I stay there and talk to the guy through intermission and things. They come back and stuff. We sit down and finish the concert out. At the end of the concert, obviously, does this guy have problems? Yeah. And so I stood up and I said, I want to feel your power, because he was telling me all his power and stuff. So I said, I want to feel your power, man. So the guy gives me a bear hug and starts squeezing me. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm figuring out how am I going to, do this stuff. But if it gets bad, I can take care of myself. I'm a big boy and stuff. He starts squeezing me, and I said, I want to feel your power. And so he starts really squeezing down on me and stuff. And I'm big. Then he made a mistake. He tried to pick me up. He picks me up off the ground, and his back goes out. And he goes, ow, my back, and stuff. And just like that, all of a sudden, was all the mythology of this grandiose thing. Boom, it was all gone. Poor dude hurt his back and stuff. I didn't try to do that. But anyways. Now I ask you this question: was he made in the image of God? Yeah. Should I have treated him with dignity and respect? And the answer is yes. Okay. Did you know that night God showed me in small ways what I should be doing with my life? God used that guy to communicate his will for my life. What's God's will? What's God's will? That guy helped me sort that out. And what I say is I praise God for that guy. And what I'm saying is be careful. God speaks through I've got somebody I know now, they're around homeless people all the time. And it's kind of like they walk around homeless people as, oh, yucky, all these homeless people. Do one of those homeless people could be Jesus? Could be an angel for all you know. And so what I'm saying is, when you see people, do you look at them with dignity and respect, even though they're in the plights of life? God can use those people to speak through you and to you. And what I'm saying is, treat people with honor and dignity. And the image of God is, by the way, is this image of God, is this a little thing or is this a big thing? This is a big thing, okay? And what I'm saying is that Christian people should allow us to connect to others, the us, across all sorts of boundaries where we look and we see the glory of God in another person. And even, by the way, is it possible that other person can't even see it in themselves? And can you bring that out? It's just, this is our gift. God has told us we are made in God's image and that we can become like God, to see that image in other people, to give them the glory and dignity that they may never have had from their father, their mother, nobody. We can give them the dignity and respect for being made in the image of God. It's wonderful. I don't know. This is really important stuff. This is a big deal. People are made in the image of God, okay?